Attorney General Pam Bondi has released a statement regarding her creation of the Second Amendment Task Force. Bondi says the task force will combine department-wide policy and litigation resources to advance President Trump's pro-gun agenda. The efforts will use government policy to push back on attempts to limit gun rights. Bondi is working on this initiative alongside Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
Department of Justice states that assault weapons bans are unconstitutional for the first time. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC. P.A.N. Firearms, your NRA certification in multifaceted gun training. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfarmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below if you like channel, like content, what I do here. You can support me with the link. Everything is appreciated. And once again, online store is open. CGB20 gets you 20% off, free shipping. Connecticut residents, you have to pay the sales tax. I have no say in the matter, but CGB20 will get you 20% off, free shipping on these items. Let's talk about this. And this is monstrous news. And once again, another massive step in the right direction to end this assault on our individual right to firearm ownership. And it's to start off by saying that the states have no right whatsoever to dictate to the people how they can exercise a right and in what fashion, under the old tried true tested nonsense and talking point of making the community safer. This, of course, goes directly to Illinois, who passed their assault weapons ban under the Protect Illinois Communities Act, where basically it was just, once again, a cookie cutter version of every assault weapons ban that was out there. But it was challenged, and I've been following this challenge all the way through. Now the DOJ has come out publicly and stated that the assault weapons ban in Illinois is unconstitutional, and they have enjoined the NRA lawsuit by filing an amicus brief in support of the plaintiffs, who are the NRA, those within Illinois who filed this suit against the state. Let me bring you into here. DOJ says Illinois gun and magazine ban violates the Second Amendment, which it does. Of course it does. But no need to get into that because we know all about Trump and the DOJ, and then Bondi coming out and stating that she is forming the Second Amendment Task Force. And I wish she would bring that Second Amendment Task Force here to Connecticut, because with this new Governor's Bill 7042, which is supposedly on Lamont's desk to be signed, if my understanding is correct, is nothing more than a direct assault on the Second Amendment without it being a direct assault on the Second Amendment, if you can understand my meaning. But I'm going to talk about that in another video. But Pam Bondi formed her Second Amendment Task Force, and looks like they're not playing. But I'm going to come right down into here. They filed an amicus brief in support of the lawsuit, but the brief filed Friday with the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals marks the first time that the Department of Justice has formally opposed the ban on so-called assault weapons, and comes as part of President Donald Trump's executive order. Remember that executive order where he said that he's going to task the DOJ, DHS, and other entities, FBI, so forth, to look at gun laws and to make sure they're not violating the Constitution. But Trump's executive order directing all federal agencies to take the appropriate steps to safeguard the right to keep and bear arms. In the brief, the DOJ argues there are three very good reasons why the appellate court should reverse course and affirm the district court's permanent injunction, despite overruling U.S. District Judge Stephen McGlynn's earlier decision granting a preliminary injunction against the gun and magazine ban, which I did talk about. I've been on top of this whole thing since it was even suggested, but the DOJ brief declares that the Seventh Circuit simply got it wrong in a previous case dealing with an assault weapons ban called Beavis versus Naperville, in which the court declared that AR-15s and other semi-automatic long guns are militaristic firearms that fall beyond the scope of the Second Amendment's protection, which is absolute nonsense. This is why we should really, if we could shake their hands, we should. The founding fathers, they knew that we were going to have people like this at some point in time. That's why they didn't put in specific firearms. They just said arms are covered under the Second Amendment. This is the reason why. because these people are saying long guns that are militaristic firearms. Well, AR-15 is not a militaristic firearm. It may look like it, but it doesn't function like one. And they really need to stop, because technically the militia is supposed to be armed with the same firearms that the military has. And when I say militia, I'm talking about the informal gathering of people in a time of emergency. It's not some structured thing as they like to abuse the well-regulated section of the Second Amendment. But this position fails as a matter of text history and precedent. The Second Amendment's prefatory clause, a well-regulated militia being necessary to security for a state, certainly does not limit the scope of its operative clause, as the Supreme Court made it clear in Heller. But the Supreme Court was just as clear that the prefatory clause text nevertheless announces one of the Second Amendment's purposes, and logic demands that there be a link between the stated purpose and the command. The Second Amendment's militia-related text, as interpreted by the Supreme Court, thus suggests that the government may not prohibit weapons simply because it considers them militaristic. The contrary claim that militaristic weapons fall outside its scope wrongfully requires reading the prefatory clause entirely out of the Second Amendment. Remember, when the Second Amendment was written, what the firearms that the militia had, the military had. And that's just how it was. And then they talk about Miller, a case from the 1930s. No need to get into that, but I want to stick to the core of this. As the Department of Justice correctly points out, the Supreme Court said in Heller and reiterated in Caetano that arms cannot be banned unless they are both dangerous and unusual. The AR-15 and other arms banned by the Protect Illinois Communities Act aren't uniquely dangerous, and they're certainly not unusual. The most popular rifle in the country. Given that we're talking about the most popular rifle in the country, there you go. So let me come out of that. So there it is. The DOJ is now siding with the NRA and its lawsuit against Illinois and its Protect Illinois Safer Communities Act. This is a monstrous deal. But as I have said multiple times in the past, those of us who live in states with assault weapons bans, when the first assault weapons ban case hits the Supreme Court and is being heard and decided upon, all of these anti-gun states are going to triple down, not double down, triple, quadruple down on gun laws to basically counteract anything the Supreme Court does. Because if the Supreme Court comes back, and rightfully they should, and said that an assault weapons ban is a violation of the Constitution, it cannot stand, expect these states to double down, triple down, quadruple down, quintuple down with more laws to prevent you from exercising your right. We're already seeing small effects of this, as Rhode Island is now pushing for an assault weapons ban, as Connecticut is now trying to pass a law that claims that if somebody uses a gun in a crime, that everybody who had any involvement with that gun is responsible civilly. Crazy nonsense going on, but this is good news. Department of Justice, Pam Bondi at the helm with the Second Amendment Task Force, is doing what they're supposed to do, what they claim they were going to do. They are fighting for our rights. This is going to be very interesting going down the pipe, because we're going to find out what happens next. Because it can go either way. Don't ever suspect that it can't. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any statements of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're notified the next time a video goes live. I'm going to see you on the next one. Peace.